Hello everyone and welcome to the official race recap for the AOR F1 2013 Season 8 Korean Grand Prix. This is round 13 of the championship, meaning it's 6 races to go of this season, and Korea usually being a track that provides quite a bit of action in the league races, and this one was going to be no different. First, for a quick look at the qualifying results and how the drivers lined up on the grid in Korea, and it was a relatively unusual name at the top of the timesheets, with Brošek taking only his second pole of the season, only a tenth and a half ahead of usual pole sitter Tyrrell Rosberg. Behind the all-Marussia front row, it was the Living Dead who grabbed his career best third place in qualifying, ahead of the Williams of Fisi 91 and the other Mercedes of Ricky C, followed by the two Tyrrell boys Martin and Minty, Martin actually appearing on the F1 grid for the first time since Bahrain, after a mid-season spell down in GP2. Once again though, the biggest story in qualifying was one of the Red Bulls not qualifying where they should be, with Tierra Limitless once again suffering with connection issues and was unable to set a time in qualifying, ending up to start last out of the 12 runners. At least he was not going to lose any points to his championship rival and teammate X-Medigi in this race, as he was unable to attend. Discounting 11th place Tyrrell Maisie, it was all option tyres for the start of the race, and as the lights went out, the Living Dead saw Brošek ahead get a brilliant launch off the line, keeping hold of the lead with no problems whatsoever. But the Mercedes tried to put up a challenge on Tyrrell Rosberg going into turn 1, trying to hang it round the outside, but ending up running wide, which allowed the Marussia to stay ahead, and it also prevented his teammate Ricky C's attempt at completing an outside pass on Fisi, and then coming down to the very tricky braking zone for turn 3, with cars literally everywhere, and Fisi ended up getting a little tap from Minty, putting him on the back foot coming down the straight towards turn 4. And Martin, who had got a great run off the corner, made it 3 wide between Fisi and Ricky C, something which might have distracted Ricky slightly as he missed his braking point, pushing Minty off the track slightly, losing them both multiple positions. But Limitless, who started from last, was on a mission to gain position as he went round the outside of Citizen and Maisie, making it 3 wide into the next corner, and as Ricky C found out, that does not end very well for everyone. The contact also cost Citizen 2 positions to Maisie and Trace, and to make it worse for himself, at the end of the lap he did a bit of a rally drift, and although he showed nice reactions to save it, he was now down in last place. After a hectic first lap, the field started settling down a bit with the two Marussias pulling away out in front, but on lap 2 the Living Dead had a big lock up into the hairpin, allowing Tyrrell Martin to slip up into a podium position, and further down the field Limitless pulled off a bit of a dive bomb overtake on Tyrrell Minty, taking advantage of the Ferrari leaving loads of space on the inside, with the Red Bull moving cleanly up to 7th place, and later in the lap the Living Dead got back his 3rd place after Martin ran wide at the exit of turn 10, and the Living Dead was really looking on course for a very impressive race. Fisi had managed to keep himself within the top 5 throughout the chaos, and on lap 3 he moved up to 4th place after Tyrrell Martin ran wide through turn 1. It looked like Cape Decay was also going to follow him through, but the curb at turn 2 said no, and instead put the Williams under pressure from Tyrrell Limitless, who was still charging his way through the field. He had the inside line coming down towards turn 3, watching Tyrrell Martin weave a bit behind Fisi in front, and Limitless securing a 6th place from Cape Decay with a pretty straightforward pass. But even more crucially, just previous to that, we had a change of the lead as Tyrrell Rosberg used DRS to good advantage, easily passing Brošek down the straight, and the Irishman with the German flag was now looking on course for his 3rd win of the season. After passing Cape Decay, Limitless went straight on the attack on Tyrrell Martin, challenging him for 5th place as they went side by side through 3 corners. Limitless doing his utmost to get himself ahead, but Martin impressively held on round the outside of turn 6. Limitless got a little bit of oversteer as well, and Martin stayed ahead after a great bit of battling. But that did not last for long as DRS kicked in on the next lap, and this time Martin did not have a response for Limitless straight line speed, meaning the Red Bull was now up to 5th, and KPTK also lost out at the same time as he locked up into the hairpin and then got wide onto the curb, which really halted his acceleration and allowed Minty to slip up to 7th. Then it was time for the pit stops to start happening, with Rosberg, Living Dead, Martin and Citizen being the early pitters at the end of lap 4, the former 3 all changing onto another set of the options, while Citizen went a different route, changing onto the primes. Back out on track, Limitless spent lap 5 trying to get past the Williams of Fisi, challenging him through turns 4, 5 and 6, but just like against Martin 2 laps earlier, he was held off for the time being. The rest of the 3 stoppers then came in at the end of lap 5, with Brošek, Limitless, Minty and Ricky C all changing onto the option tyres, which seemed to be the norm around here, 3 stints on the options and then 1 on the primes, but the Williams drivers were both still staying out, squeezing every last bit of performance out of the 1 option tyres in an attempt to go for a 2-stopper instead. After having had the pleasure of leading the race for a lap, Fisi then duly came into the pits at the end of lap 6, changing onto the prime tyres for a long second stint, with teammate KPDK following his example a lap later. Fisi came out in 7th behind TRL Martin and TRL Limitless, who had both jumped ahead him by pitting earlier, and then on lap 8 he was under attack by Ricky C, who went around the outside of turn 4, getting the inside for turn 5, pulling off a beautiful move, Fisi having to slot in behind him in 8th place on the slower tyres. TRL Maisie was still going on his first stint of the race, having started on the prime tyres, and on lap 10 he got passed by TRL Martin down the DRS straight, but Martin then outbraked himself down into turn 3, went wide and got passed back by Maisie and also passed by Ricky C, who was now challenging Maisie for 5th place down towards turn 4. Ricky staying close in his slipstream and shifting to the inside line just before the braking zone. Maisie trying to hold it round the outside, but Ricky C, with much more grip on his tyres, had no problems taking advantage and getting past him. Fisi meanwhile could not get past Martin at the same time, and both of them now got held up by Maisie slightly as Ricky C started pulling away, Martin though forcing his way through after going side by side through the sweeping turn 12, and Fisi followed him through a few corners later to move up to 7th, with TRL Minty also passing his Ferrari teammate on the next lap. Then it was time for pit stops again, with the Living Dead coming in for a very early second stop at the end of lap 10, TRL Martin and race leader TRL Rosberg came in on lap 11, and on lap 12 KPTK was the next person to make his way past TRL Maisie, who was really struggling with tyres at this point and went into the pits at the end of the lap. So did TRL Limitless, Ricky C and Brosiek as well, all going on to another set of the option tyres, making it completely clear that they were going for a 3-stop strategy, and Fisi on course for a 2-stopper again took the lead of the race temporarily. Half of the race had gone by, and on lap 14 KPTK was coming under pressure from Brosiek down the DRS straight, the Marussia driver pulling off a straightforward pass before they reached the braking zone. However, Living Dead behind outbraked himself slightly and gave a tap to KPTK, making him go wide and allowed Limitless to take advantage, slipping off the inside to pass them both as Living Dead then slowed down sportingly to give the position back to KPTK, realising his mistake. But then going into turn 4, KPTK had a massive lock-up which allowed Living Dead to get alongside him again immediately, and KPTK tried to hang on to the position, but Living Dead, with much better tyres at this point, held it easily around the outside of turn 5, took the inside line for turn 6 and demoted KPTK to 6th place. On the next lap, TRL Rosberg caught up to Fisi in what was a legitimate battle for the lead, as both of these guys only had 1 stop remaining in the race. However, with Fisi being on 1 prime tyres at this stage and Rosberg also having DRS, it was an easy pass for Rosberg to retake the lead of the race. Just behind, Brosiek was making it slightly harder though for Limitless to get past, defending the inside line, but Limitless braked a lot later on the outside, leaving Brosiek just about enough room on the apex, getting nicely under power as well for a very impressive outside overtake to get up to 3rd place in the race. And on the next lap there was even more action into the hairpin, with Kerry under pressure from Ricky C having a slight twitch through the corner, and Ricky C with his fresher tyres getting much better traction to move himself up to 6th place. At the end of lap 16, Fisi was still finding himself in 2nd place, but he was starting to really struggle on his 1 prime tyres, and also had to put up with pressure from an extremely fast Limitless, and despite Fisi's efforts to defend the inside line, Limitless again was really impressive in the braking zone, the cars getting a bit too close for comfort at the exit, but Limitless pulling off yet another outside pass. And on the next lap it was Brosiek who wanted to take advantage of the Williams driver's tyre struggles, but he could not make a move stick into turn 3. He kept at it however, and into turn 4 went for the inside line, locking his inside front tyre slightly, leaving Fisi with nowhere to go on the outside, but they avoided contact and Brosiek was now up to the final podium position. KPTK was also really struggling with tyres at this stage, and he ran wide at turn 10 and lap 18, losing out to both TRL Martin and TRL Minty in the process. And at the same corner a lap later it was Ricky C's turn to challenge Fisi. He tried for the outside overtake, but he was a bit too optimistic on this occasion, but going into the sweeping left-hander, Fisi took a much wider line, while Ricky had great turn-in and stayed tight on the inside before they both went side by side through the right-hander. Fisi's car getting a little bit out of shape, and Ricky C had got the move done after some great side-by-side action, and although Fisi wanted to fight back, he just did not have the grip in the tyres to do it. But then Ricky C went straight into the pit lane for his final stop of the day, going on to a 9-lap prime stint at the end of the race, just like TRL Limitless and Brosiek ahead as well, and Brosiek actually came out of the pits just ahead of the Living Dead, who had pitted 3 laps earlier, and the Mercedes driver was challenging Brosiek later that lap, trying to squeeze through on the outside of turn 4, but Brosiek just about held it on the inside, forcing Living Dead to back down and remain in 6th, which would then turn into 4th place when both of the Williams drivers pitted at the end of the lap. Having endured the extremely long middle stint on the primes meant that the Williams boys could now go for a fast stint at the end on the option tyres, but they still had a lot of work to do, with Fisi rejoining in 6th place behind Ricky C and KPTK coming out of the pits all the way down in 10th. It had been a relatively silent race at the back of the field for Citizen, but on lap 21, directly after coming out the pits just behind TRL Maisie, he pulled off a DRS overtake on the Ferrari driver to move himself up to 11th place, which became 10th place when Trace Me92 pitted a few laps later. Brošek was looking on course for a solid podium after pulling away from Living Dead slightly, but on lap 22 he hit a curb at completely the wrong angle, which sent him into a spin and dropped him behind Living Dead and put him under pressure from the Ricky C as well. And on the next lap that proved to be costly, as Ricky C pulled off a great overtake, doing a little bit of a dummy on Brošek going into the braking zone, moving to the left before diving to the right and up the inside, leaving Brošek just about enough space on the exit to get the move done. And this battle had allowed Fisi to also catch up with the pair, as Brošek tried to fight back on Ricky around the outside of turn 4, but he couldn't pull it off and was put under pressure from Fisi instead, with Williams looking for a way past, trying to get a better exit out of turn 6 here on the better tyres, but he couldn't get the traction to get it done and had to reluctantly stay in 6th place for now. At the back of the field, Citizen now looked to have the upper hand in the battle against Maisie, but that was until he seemed to have some kind of steering problems and literally drove into the wall, knocking off the right front wing end plate and just about allowing Maisie to slip ahead of him. And back in the midfield, Fisi had been spending a frustrating lap 24 behind Brošek without being able to get past, but he saw an opportunity at the start of the lap 25, put it up to Rich Mix with DRS on the start finish straight, up the inside into turn 1, taking the 5th place with a little bit of a squeeze on Brošek at the exit, but fortunately no contact. And a bit further down the field, TRL Martin ran wide at turn 1 by himself, which gave KPDK a free pass up to 8th place. Lap 26 was about to start, meaning there was 3 laps left in the race that was about to turn extremely crazy. The Living Dead was still holding on to 3rd place after making an early last pit stop, but was now struggling with tyre wear and was under severe pressure from his teammate Ricky C and Fisi as well, and Brošek in the Marussia just behind. Ricky C had got a great run off of turn 1 and now with DRS was really keen on moving himself up to the podium position. Living Dead did not want to give in to his teammate easily and held the inside line going into the braking zone, but Ricky with more grip in his tyres managed to hold it around the outside, as Living Dead also got a bit unsettled on the curb, ending up understeering across the road and leaving Fisi with absolutely nowhere to go, as Brošek was just chilling out behind, hoping for some kind of incident up ahead, as Living Dead was again forced to defend, this time from Fisi. He'll try to go around the outside of turn 4, but Living Dead also ended up running wide, forcing Fisi out on the marbles, which meant that he would be struggling more with traction for the next few corners. And as Living Dead held his line nicely into turn 6, Fisi was instead put under pressure from Brošek, who took a tighter line, and although it didn't look like he got the best exit, he smartly used all of the rest of his curves to get alongside Fisi into the sweeping right bend of turn 7, which meant that he had the inside for turn 8 and turn 9, and Fisi had suddenly dropped to 6th place after challenging for 4th just moments earlier. But then on turn 10, Brošek ended up running wide and lost his car mid-corner, possibly with the help of a little lag contact, dropping him behind TRL Minty and putting him under pressure from KPDK, going through the sweeping sections of turn 11 and 12. KPDK using his grippy option tyres to good advantage, Brošek though trying his best to hang on, but after a great bit of side-by-side action, it was KPDK who came out on top. And the race was about to turn even more dramatic, as TRL Limitless, who had been running by himself in 2nd place after the last round of pit stops, suffered yet another connection problem, dropping him out of the race with only 2 laps remaining. And it was heartbreak for the 4th race running for the Red Bull driver, who just could not seem to get his connection sorted. The show had to go on though in the midfield, and with Limitless disconnection, the battle between Living Dead and Fisi was now for 3rd place, as Fisi tried to move up the inside of Living Dead into turn 1. He looked to have the move done, but then suddenly there was contact between the 2 cars, which forced Living Dead wide and sent Fisi into a half spin, giving them both horrible exits out of the corner, giving TRL Minty and Fisi's teammate KPDK an amazing run to going down the straight, KPDK stealing the position from all of them to go up to 3rd place, and Fisi being the only one in the group without DRS down the straight got absolutely mugged. With TRL Minty on his left side and Living Dead on the right, he was left with nowhere to go through turn 3, and further contact meant Brošek also got ahead of him. And that's how quickly the tables can turn. In the matter of one straight, one Williams driver had gained 3 positions while the other one had lost 4. And you can see here just how it looked from KPDK's view. He was absolutely nowhere going into turn 1, but as the 3 cars ahead ended up going so slow out of the corner, he suddenly found himself in a position to overtake all of them using all of his curves, DRS and rich fuel mix to get it done. Throughout that lap, KPDK and Minty were starting to pull away, while Brošek and Fisi were desperately trying to get past the Living Dead, but he kept defending well, and Fisi could not get around the outside of Brošek at turn 3, putting his hand up into the air out of frustration. Brošek carried on the charge down towards turn 4, and ended up on the outside of Living Dead around the corner, but again Living Dead took a wide line and made it impossible to get around him, and they now had TRL Martin all over them as well, all of them really close together. Fisi going for the overtake at turn 6, but get unsettled on the curb and couldn't get it done, again having the wrong line up the hill on the outside this time, now coming under pressure from Martin, who gave him a slight tap going into the corner, which sent the Williams off the road. just topping off an extremely frustrating final stint for the Williams driver, despite Martin giving him back the position afterwards. But for TRL Rosberg it was a great race. He won the race dominantly in the end, his third win of the season and one that would surely help him in the championship, with both of the Red Bulls failing to score. Ricky C securing second with KPDK in third and Minty in fourth, but the drama was still not over in the midfield as coming around the final corner, Living Dead ran out of fuel, leaving him completely helpless to defend from Brochek and Fisi coming towards the line, and he dropped from 5th to 7th right at the final moment, meaning Brochek finished 5th and Fisi 6th in the end. As we now have the final results of the race, with TRL Rosberg winning by 21 seconds ahead of second place, a gap that would have been smaller of course if a limitless connection had allowed him to stay until the end. And for KPDK it's actually his first legitimate podium of the season, after the penalty he got in Monza demoted him to 4th there. And further down the field we can see that Tyrrell Maisie finished ahead of Citizen in the end in the final 2 points positions, with Race United 2 just about missing out, Limitless sadly not finishing, and then at the bottom the 3 drivers who weren't present. For the Drivers' Championship this actually means that Ricky C jumps above TRL Limitless in the standings, up to second place, 29 points behind the championship leader XMAG, with Rosberg not too far Limitless either in 4th place, Minty in 5th ahead of Fisi, then you have Leobot and KPTK only separated by 1 point in the midfield there, but no real position changes apart from 2nd and 3rd. And for the constructors, Red Bull still dominantly at the top despite their 2nd race running of actually not scoring any points, Mercedes looking good in 2nd ahead of Marussia and Williams, Ferrari meanwhile jumping above Toro Rosso for 5th, and Caterham staying ahead of Sauber at the bottom. The next race coming up in this recap or a look back series, as you could call it now, is a Japanese Grand Prix around Suzuka, so I'll see you there. Thank you very much for watching and goodbye.